Anybody who has ever done a sport will know that a huge part of any sport that you're doing is a process called training, right? To get better and to improve or go from basically a novice or an amateur to the first stage or the first level of any sport is to actually train. Training is a huge important aspect of any sport, right? So for someone like me now that did football, and whenever you go to training, right, you're going to do drills, you're going to do warm-ups, and then the next thing you're going to do is that you're going to do drills. During the training, you could do drills, you could do defensive drills, you could do attacking drills, you could do set piece drills, for things, let's say like a corner kick. When you're taking a corner kick, you train on a sequence of events that needs to happen so that you can actually achieve success, which is usually scoring a goal. It doesn't happen all of the time, but if you follow that sequence of events, most often than not, you'll be able to achieve a goal. You'll be able to achieve success. It improves your chances of actually becoming successful during that set piece, right? During free kicks, during penalties and things like that. So you are taught some fundamentals, some basics that you need to learn to actually get better. You do drills, ball control drills, and you do it every single time that you come to training. Those fundamentals are being hammered into your brain over and over and over again, so that when you do a practice match, you'll be able to take that information and actually apply it on the field and apply it on the pitch, so that when you actually go for a match against another team, you'll be able to take that information and actually apply it on the field within that 90 minutes of football. It's the same thing that you need to think about. That's the same mindset you need to have whenever you are actually becoming an artist. Whenever you've decided that you are somebody that wants to improve at art, become a better artist, whether that be a comic book artist, whether that be a concept artist, an environment artist, whether that's prop design, whatever it is that you want to do, you need to have that mindset. And in having that mindset, whenever you are someone that is a beginner in that thing, the early stages is going to needs to involve a lot of repetition, and you're going to know that a lot of the things you are repeating and doing over and over and over and over again, they're not going to be up to standard. Those first drills that you're going to do, they're going to feel like hell, but the more you do them, the more you are consistent with them, they're going to feel easy. And once they actually feel easy, you're going to see yourself instinctively applying them when you are actually performing on stage, when you're actually performing on the pitch against another team. The fundamentals, the techniques of drawing become instinct to you once you've actually done a lot of repetition. Someone is a beginner artist and they'll pick up a sketch, they'll finally get a sketchbook, they'll finally get a pen, they'll finally get the drawing materials, and then they'll pick a portrait that they want to draw, a portrait of a beautiful person that they want to draw, or a beautiful fish or animal that they want to draw, and then draw that fish or draw that animal, and then they'll end up with a horrible drawing, and then they'll finally decide and judge themselves without giving themselves grace that they are a terrible artist, that they are an artist that is not good enough. But you've just done one drawing. The difference between you and an artist that you admire on Instagram is the fact that that artist has thousands upon hundreds of drawings ahead of you. That artist has done a lot more repetitions than you. That artist has a lot more mileage in that particular skill than you do. Let's say you want to learn a skill, whether that be a piano, let's say you want to learn an instrument or a particular sport, maybe skating, or let's say football, for instance. And then you go to the first training session, and the first training session is so difficult. It is so difficult. You're embarrassing yourself here and there. Your coordination is bad. And then you judge yourself based on that one training session. That is not how it works. You need to stop confusing practice with performance. Practice is where you are allowed to make mistakes. The problem with this world is that all we ever see are the highlights. We never see the awkward drawings, the awful drawings that people are actually doing. You know, people don't always share that these days. People would give a sketchbook tour and they will get their most perfect drawings and that they've done in their sketchbook and call that like a sketch. Of course, technically, I'm not saying that there are sketches that are not pretty, but I'm saying that a large extent, the thing about practice, the thing about sketch studies is that they are meant to challenge you. They are meant to be difficult. So usually you would see awkward art, but the thing with social media is that a lot of the times you are seeing the highlights, right? The perfect works that people have done, and they are not actually bringing out their sketchbook, if we are being honest. And because of this, everybody thinks that the sketches that they do have to be perfect. No, it doesn't. The sketches you do are meant to teach you. They are meant to teach you. They are meant to serve as tutors. They are meant to allow you to make mistakes. They are meant to allow you to make errors. You learn from them and then you try again. Your sketch doesn't need to be Instagram or social media worthy. Your sketch is meant, like I keep saying, and I'll keep saying it, is meant to challenge you. Your sketches, your practice is meant to build mileage in that new skill that you're doing, right? It is meant to build your experience in that thing that you're doing, to learn what is wrong and learn how to avoid doing what is wrong. It's not meant to be your final exam. It is meant to be like the homework that you do. I don't know how the education system in other places work, but back when I was in secondary school, one of the way it worked was that we had the entire exams were graded over 100, right? So it was divided into two. So you would have the test, which was over 30, and then the exam, the final exams, which was over 70. And this test, the way our teachers ran them was that they would do them over 15 to make the work easier for them and allow them to spread it across the entire term before the final exams. So the way it would work is that our teachers would have a scheme of work, like for the term, the things that you're actually supposed to learn, like over the term. And then what they would do is that, like, once they reach like 50% of the topics they're supposed to teach, to actually show that these students have learned, they would give a test and then they would grade it over 15. And then by the end of the term, they'll give another test and grade it over 15, which will contribute to 30. And then the final exam, which will be a few weeks later. Now, during the course of those tests, what they usually do is that they would give homework to sort of show that after every quarter of like the test, before the test, that they would want to know, they want to believe and feel comfortable that what they are teaching, even though there are people called olodos in the class, that no matter how you teach or train them, they are not going to learn. So they would want to feel comfortable that at least a large majority, even if it's 60% of the class, are actually understanding what the teacher is teaching. So they would give assignments, right? They would give homeworks. So to allow you to go home, to make research, to actually sit with what they've taught in class and get comfortable with the information and understand it and properly digest it well, and then give them answers. So once they gather all these homeworks together, they'll be able to ascertain that, oh, it's like a huge section of the class didn't understand this particular aspect of the information I was passing back in class. Then they will now come back and, hold the student's hand and teach them properly, or they will whoop their ass and flog them most of the time. During those times, that is the time that you practice, right? You practice so that you can actually, when it's time for the test, the homework sort of prepares you for what the test is going to be like, right? Your teacher gives you information on what the test is going to contain, and then you go home and then you jack or study and then come back and present the information you've been able to accumulate over the time, the period that you studied. That is sort of how you should be treating your time of practice. You shouldn't be treating it like, your sketchbook shouldn't be a place that you look at that, oh, these sketches are going to be put out in a gallery, right? These sketches are actually going to be my audition. No, it is not. Your sketches are meant to allow you to experiment. A lot of people would want immediate gratification whenever they start learning something. The growth is not linear. It takes a lot of time. It is frustrating. The thing is that every single drawing that you are doing is actually, it's not visible. The growth is not visible, but every single drawing that you're doing is actually improving you. You're actually developing because your awareness is improving, your observation is improving as well. Kind of like a bamboo tree. For years and years, you don't see anything, but all of a sudden, the bamboo tree just shoots up into the sky, feet upon feet into the sky. And that is sort of how art feels like. Every single drawing that you're doing, every single study that you're doing, it feels like it's not making sense, right? It feels like, it's a bit disjointed. But once you keep at it, once you keep being consistent with it and go at it every single day and dedicate that 30 minutes, that 1 hour, that 2 hours every single day to it, you're going to find yourself in 6 months' time, in a year's time, you're going to see that the quality of your art has actually improved. That is when you start operating on instincts, right? Because you've spent so much time with the basics, you've spent so much time doing a lot of the studies, you've spent so much time watching tutorials and actually applying the things that the tutorials have said. Over time, that fundamental, that technique that felt difficult then becomes instinct. It becomes something you then apply. You then know how to break down any pose. You then know how to, approach anything that you're doing. It's kind of like me with comic books, because I pivoted a bit from doing a lot of portrait illustrations and just full body illustrations in general to doing more comic books, right? I'm working on my own personal comic. And the thing I've noticed is that the only way for me to actually get better at doing the comic books is by actually doing the comic books, because I'm actually going to see that probably I don't understand how to probably display pacing, like things like the distance between each gutter, how it affects a scene, how to create dynamic panels, how to probably create perspective, like do a perspective that actually displays a scene properly. Like there are all these techniques here and there that I've not mastered, that I don't get better at them by just studying and reading about them. I get better at them by actually doing them. Let's say I speak one thing that I study, whether it's about perspective or paneling or expressions or emotions or how to use speech bubbles in a page. I pick that one thing and I try to apply them, and I learn better by actually doing, because you're going to encounter challenges that you probably don't have the answer for, but by just pushing through anyways, eventually you're going to learn how to combat that page when you see it again. But the problem is that is probably 50 or 80 pages away. That's but then you have the information now, is what I'm trying to say. So you don't get to that level where you have the information on how to tackle that paneling problem if you don't keep going. This mindset is the same thing that is applicable in every single industry, whether you're a musician, whether you're an athlete, whether you are a composer, whether you are a writer, right? Every single person is actually going to take this is going to experience this awkward phase, even though you are like a top artist, right? And you want to branch out into something new. Let's say you want to do 3D art or something like that. There's always going to be that awkward phase, and that awkward phase, you cannot avoid it, because that is actually the road that you need to take to become the top artist that you aspire to become. If you are somebody that is looking at your sketchbook, the sketchbook that you have, or that particular folder or file on your system, right, where you actually do your sketches, your sketch series, you are looking at that and you are feeling disappointed or you're feeling frustrated, you don't need to feel like that. Those rough sketches, those ugly work were actually meant to educate you. Those are the price, those ugly works that you've done, right? Those sketches, those rough sketches, those studies that you've done, they are meant to develop you as an artist. Those early drawings are not your legacy as an artist. Those are just simply the price that you must pay as a creative, as somebody that has decided to become better and improve at this skill, right? Those are the price. That's just simply the price that you must pay. There's always a quantity tax that you must pay as a creative whenever you are starting something out. It doesn't simply mean that those first ugly works, those first 100 drawings that you have done are irrelevant. One day your skill is actually going to match your taste. Right now, most people's tastes are over here, right? They are the standard that everybody has, right? Their standards are quite high, their tastes are quite high, but their skills are down here, right? One day, if you keep going and keep going and keep going and keep going, your taste is actually going to match your skill level or the quality of art you are able to create. For most people, it may take 100, it might take 200, it might take 300, it might take 3,000. Everybody has their own personal journey. Everybody learns at different pace. Because whenever you are studying something, there is a point where you keep studying. If you keep going, there's a point where everything is just going to finally click and you're just going to understand how it works. But that won't happen if you give up. Anyways, that's just what I wanted to talk about today. Have a nice day, guys.